Ramped up our assistance, including military assistance.
Mr. Obama announced last week that America is increasing its help to moderate rebels in Syria and to the government and Kurdish militias in Iraq. He also authorized sending another 475 American troops to Iraq, which would bring the total there to about 1,600. But at a military base in Florida this week, he stressed American troops will not be sent into combat.
I want to be clear. The American forces that have been deployed to Iraq do not and will not have a combat mission. They will support Iraqi forces on the ground as they fight for their own country against these terrorists. As your commander-in-chief, I will not commit you and the rest of our armed forces to fighting another ground war in Iraq.
Yet many Americans fear the country could slide into a new war in Iraq. Anti-war protesters frequently interrupted a hearing in the U.S. Congress this week. Their doubts were reinforced when Mr. Obama's chief military advisor seemed to contradict the president by saying American troops could be called on to fight in Iraq.
If we reach the point where I believe our advisors should accompany Iraq troops on attacks against specific ISIL targets, I'll recommend that to the president.
Some, like this supporter of the moderate Free Syrian Army, think the stepped-up American aid will be enough to push back ISIS without U.S. boots on the ground.
I don't think that it's a requirement, because since if there's the Peshmerga and the Iraqi troops will be able to fight against the ISIS, and the Free Syrian Army was able actually to crush in the past, was very successful in crushing the ISIS from different areas in Syria without help from the international community or from the U.S.
Others, especially from the opposition Republican Party, feel Mr. Obama is not doing enough to stop the Islamic State extremists. But some analysts say America does not have as much influence in the region as it may like to think.
Whatever they do will actually have little impact, in my opinion. I mean, you could do a lot of bombing and you can do a lot of destruction, but ISIS is a sort of, it's a fungible organization. I mean, it goes across fungible borders and it goes from place to place. They don't have a headquarter. So the president, who basically came into office on the promise that he will end the Iraq war, finds himself again, and after almost toward the end of his term, having to go back to war again and leaving it behind to his successor, maybe his successors.
The U.S. Congress has just given Mr. Obama its backing by approving his plan to increase military aid to moderate rebels in Syria, in the hopes that they will use at least part of it to fight the Islamic State extremists. One of President Barack Obama's proudest accomplishments has been ending America's long wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Mr. Obama says he will not recommit American troops to the region. But as the so-called Islamic State consolidates its brutal rule over northern Iraq and northern Syria, Mr. Obama is coming under increasing pressure to do just that. Burton Bolak, KSA2, Washington.